Hi, my name is B. Pila, and welcome to Sacred Soulful Sundays. Let's get into this week's session. I didn't know we were going to have a class today, but as it is, I was downloading last night, of course, in my sleep because, this was impending. So, there's such a beautiful theme that came in. In fact, I get emotional because all it was the energy of the day. The energy of the day, as you know, being Easter, is so uplifting and so hopeful. So the words that came in for me as today's teaching are very simple and yet very profound. Of course, number one and foremost is love. Love and more love. Hope, because that's what the state that we are in a state of hope. And resurrection, of course, but what resurrection really means to us today. What does that mean in the history of what we know that Jesus brought to the table, right? And why is today so important? And how can one human being make such an impact? If it wasn't important, how could one human being make such an impact for so long and in such a grand scale? But the theme of that is that we are all united in this journey of being Christ-like, okay? And we've all been very conditioned and trained in our belief system when it comes to what Jesus is, right? And and really, as a human being, when Jesus walked this earth, there was no dogmatic religion around him. The only thing he was doing was creating an example for us all, but also knowing deeply in his connection to his higher self that he was chosen, or he chose to come to live that example. And if you think about it, all of us pretty much are past the age that he was in doing so, right? Can you imagine leaving that kind of impact in 33 years of life? That's pretty dramatic. And yet, during that lifetime, there was no desire per se to create a religion or a dogma around the teachings, which were very, very basic, like today's class. Today's class is about love, about hope, about resurrection, and also about one other thing that came in very, very loud and clear, and that is service. Each of us are on this journey of spiritual awakening, and we've been traveling through it for years now, right? All of us. And I would say that we've all made incredibly significant growth and expansion and change in our lives based on this spiritual journey that we are on. We are, in fact, very, very much awake on this journey. There's no going back, right? Would you say, all of you? There's just no going back to being asleep. So with this wisdom and this knowledge and this expansion that we have in our hearts, because all of us have this incredibly one thing in common, and that is that our hearts are open. Yes, all of us, Maribel, all of our hearts are very much open. And it's our responsibility to expand that light and that love that comes from our hearts to all of the world in our service of expanding and raising the vibration of this planet. That came in so, so, so loud and clear, but connected at the same time with this incredible feeling of joy and love that I can't say it without getting emotional, because I kept waking up in the middle of the night, just feeling this incredible, incredible expansion of love. Because as I asked, and I specifically asked for Jesus to come in, because I mean, hey, today's the day. As I specifically asked, all I could feel was love. And the same kind of love and joy that I had when I first had my spiritual awakening, which freaked everybody out because I was surrounded by my girls and they witnessed me crying for about an hour and a half, 2 hours nonstop. And it was the reason that I felt that. The reason that I was crying was because it was tears of joy of having known what it feels like to be completely and utterly connected to the love of God. When that happens to you, there's no going back. And guess what? You've all experienced it. It's not something that you haven't experienced. It's simply that you've forgotten. Okay? I want you to remember that. Because we are in a state right now, right here, of remembering who we really are, so that we can go forth and help the resurrection of the earth and its humanity. Okay? So resurrection is a rebirth. And today was so beautiful, because all this time I've been here in the cabin, every single time there were 3 little bird feeders, right? 3 little bird feeders on these hooks at the entrance to the back terrace. And they were just sitting there, and I hadn't gotten to them. And I'm like, oh, there must be a place where they're supposed to be put up, right? They were here before I came. And I was too busy, too busy cleaning the kitchen, too busy making the beds, too busy putting the furniture, too busy doing that. Finally, yesterday, I asked my contractor, because I was cleaning the windows, and I saw there was all this little poop on the windowsill of my log cabin windows. All this little poop, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, there's a rat in here. There must be like a rodent. What do I do now? I'm like, how do I get this out of here? But I haven't seen a rodent, right? So yesterday when he came to visit me, he said, oh, because I asked him, I left one windowsill dirty on purpose just to ask him, what kind of poop was this? And he says to me, oh, wait a minute. No, that was the birds. And I'm like, what do you mean the birds? He says, when we were painting the windows, we opened them, right? We took the screens off, and 4 birds came into the house because they were going for the bird feeders. It took us forever to take these 4 birds out of the house. And they attacked the bird feeders. There was bird seed all over the place. And we couldn't get the birds out. Finally, after hours, we got the birds out. And of course, there was bird poop all over the windowsills. And I'm laughing, and I said to him, well, I would have loved to have gotten a video of that. But the whole point is that I took these little bird feeders out finally. I'm thinking, how come I didn't notice this before and didn't put the bird? All this time I could have been experiencing the beauty of these birds coming to eat on my terrace. And it's because I didn't pay attention. I wasn't, I was in my own little head trying to get my log cabin ready, doing all that stuff. And all I needed to do was put the bird feeders out. That's it. Guess what the bird feeders do? Attract. They attract the birds, right? Without any effort. They know what to do, right? They don't have, nobody told them that Publix was open, you know? They just immediately find what they need as they need it. Now, can you imagine if we were like that? Like if we actually didn't get in our heads about everything and just do things naturally? That's what spring is doing right this very minute. I'm looking outside, and every single tree that was brown and leafless is now beautifully lush and blossoming in green without any effort whatsoever. If we could just stop efforting and start trusting, right? What a world would it be? If we didn't have all of these to-do lists that drive us nuts, right? And we just said, oh, every day I'm going to have a bird feeder. Just take care of me. This is the state that we need to live in. And the only way we do that is by relaxing into our own nature and remembering who we truly are. Who we truly are, which is, and always is, connected to love. And since love and nature are the same thing, okay, why wouldn't we be in alignment with that? Why would we create that separation, which is what Jesus was here to teach? It's like we're always in a state of love and kindness and compassion. Always. It is when we get disconnected from our true self, from our true being, which is love, that we suffer. Now, I grew up pretty much under the, loosely said, because I don't think that my family was incredibly religious, right? We were and we weren't, right, Mom? I think we were and we weren't. I believe that we had a deep understanding that there is a God, that there is a higher being that are connected to everything. Of course, I learned all the basic rules of Catholicism, but somehow inside of me, I always knew that there was a deeper meaning to it all that only came from my own heart. It really didn't come from a dogmatic religious perspective. It came from myself. And all of you have that within you, in your own self-expression of what it means to be in connection to that loving self that you are. So the hope that I'm speaking about today is the hope that we will move forward in this connection that we all know and recognize as ourselves every day. And that we use that connection as if we were speaking to someone on the cell phone, okay? Like we were just grabbing the phone and saying, hey, God, I need a little help. And I have this problem, right? Just as simple as that. instead of this dogmatic thought that we have to pray in a very specific way and make things, if we didn't do it right, we're not going to get the right answer and we're going to be punished. Because in my opinion, there is no such thing as punishment from God. God doesn't operate the same way that a human being does. There is no such thing as punishment. There is only a fear created in ourselves when we separate from what we know to be truth, light, and love. Does that make sense to you all? When we are in separation of what is our true being, which is truth, light, and love, we punish ourselves. That is the hell that we have been taught. The hell is a separation from the state of heaven that we are privy to experiencing if we are in alignment with that love. And that is the message that Jesus came to bring. There is no such thing as fear unless you make it. And that forgiveness is always available to us. But this forgiveness is granted through grace, which is a state of love and trust and faith. Grace is the deep belief in the trust of God's love. Does that make sense? I hope so, because this dogmatic conditioning that we have, most of us actually, not all of us, but I'd love to hear from you as to who has this perception that you could do something wrong. Okay, the only reason you feel that you could do something wrong is because it is not in alignment with the state of love that you truly are. Okay, that's when you feel that you are being punished or suffering or being hurt or feeling guilty or feeling resentment. When you feel these emotions, it's because you have separated yourself from the light of God, from your true being, which is always receiving love. It's like you're punishing yourself because you don't deserve, because of some crazy action that you did that was not in your highest good and in the highest good of others. And this is why practicing the statement in asking what is in my highest and greatest good, as well as in the highest and greatest good of all. When you say these words, you get an answer. And that answer is in alignment with all that is good. And when all that is good is present, that is called love. That is the state in which nature operates, right? It's never in a state of fear. It is never in a state of fear. So when you are feeling anything that is a negative thought form, you are in a state of separation. So the goal is to always find your way back home to love. The answer is very clear. It's always what is in the highest good of all. Okay, and that's how you find your way to service. And the more you serve in this way, the more you're able to receive all the bounty of this loving reality. Does that make sense to anybody? I hope so, because that's all the message. And all of the ascended masters came to say the same thing. Okay. The ascended masters, which Jesus is one of them, came to, by example, live in that state of being, of total selflessness, so that we could understand that that is possible, that it is doable, and it is doable still within this body form that we have created an expression of ourselves. So I'd love to hear, what beliefs do you have around the Jesus or Jesus Christ and Easter? Because I know I have mine, but I'd love to hear what it is that it is to you. Does anybody want to share that? Yes, Mom?
Unfortunately, all this guilt and sin was brought on by the religions that made you want, they wanted control over you. They
True.
wanted to control what you thought, what you felt. Everything else was wrong. And they changed the entire picture of what Jesus, the ascended master, was. Because Christ was Jesus that came to do a Christic mission.
Right.
And unfortunately, they've put into all everybody's minds that this was sinful, this was wrong, this was bad, this was everything, right down to taking a bath. And I'm literally talking history. So we live in a world where we think that religion is for many people, religion is a way of being on a straight path. I don't say that it isn't, but we have to find ourselves.
Absolutely.
We have to find ourselves, because we are not Catholic, Baptist, Jewish, Buddhist. We are ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, within all those religions and within all those philosophies, we can absorb what vibrates with us, with each one of us.
Yes.
Vibrate with somebody else's ideas. You have to accept it and say, well, this is what I think. And like you said, God is not the punisher. We are the punishers.
Yes. We punish ourselves. When we find ourselves in a state of separation, we feel punished because we feel like the light has been turned off within us. We know what's right and what's wrong, and it's not even right or wrong. It's just a negative or a positive state of vibration. That's all it is, really. We give it the word good, bad, right, wrong, simply because we need language in order to describe the energy that's in motion. But it's all based on love or fear, one or the other. That's really the clear state of it all. The truth is that there is no such thing, because I've said it many times. Number one, the word sin translated really just means missing the mark. Okay? You missed the mark. Time to do it again. Right? So when we sin, we just missed the mark of our highest self. That's what we did. We didn't do what is in our highest and greatest good of us and all. And that's what we're doing here, guys. Experimenting with this interesting concept called being human. And being human allows us to explore the contrast and polarity of the positive and the negative. That's all we are doing here. Because if we were not in this physical form, where would we be? We would be connected to our higher self, which is God, right? Because once we separate from this physical form, we become that state. And by the way, this is a free will state. In other words, we can and are allowed, the programming that we are in, the coding of the computer program that we are in allows us to commit a sin. to see how it feels within us to do so. And usually it feels pretty shitty, right? When we do something that we do not feel good about, usually that's called a sin because it is missing the mark of our highest self. So we are, in essence, experimenting with this little game of whether we do the right answer, meaning the one that feels best, or the one that feels bad to ourselves. And therefore, we get to punish ourselves or not. Nobody else is pushing that button, okay? Nobody else is telling us that, yeah, the law could tell us that, if we did something wrong, if we have to police ourselves, really, we're all in a state, let's call it, we're all in a state of being at this stage, all of you that are on this call, that we are capable of policing ourselves. You know what I mean? This isn't the wild, wild west where we have guns on our holsters and we're walking down the street and say, I don't like that guy. Bam. We're all in a state of policing ourselves from doing things that are not in our highest and greatest good and in the highest and greatest good and service of others. That, however, comes with deep responsibility. It's huge. It's huge to resist the temptation of thinking that anything that you do does not affect everyone else. And I've used the metaphor of putting a drop of poison into the ocean many times, because it's one of the best ways to understand that if the ocean is, if you take a cup of water from the ocean here, is it part of the ocean over there? Of course it is. The air is the air, is it not? The ocean is the ocean. So if I poison the ocean here, I'm poisoning it everywhere. It may be diluted. It may not kill somebody on the other side of the planet immediately, but it's still poison, right? So if we get to this state of understanding within ourselves that everything is connected, that we are not separate from God and we are not separate from each other, that all of us take full responsibility for every action and every consequence together as a whole. Whoa, that's huge. It's huge. And at the same time, it's so simple. We're going to get there. And that's the hope. The message of hope that came in for me was that beautiful. And like I said, I can't talk about it without getting emotional because it was such a beautiful thing to be told again and again last night how much hope we should feel. How much hope we should feel. Because the news tells us how unhopeful it is out there. But that is not true. There is more progress and awakening being made, I believe, than there has been ever before. It doesn't feel that way. It may not seem that way, but I have to tell you, it is the truth. And as long as you believe it, Nancy posted, I watched The Magical Elephant last night by myself. Have you guys seen it? The Magician's Elephant. Not yet. The Magician's Elephant. Oh my God, it was the sweetest thing. And again, the message of hope and belief. And Nancy posted how I had spoken about belief being our superpower, right? When we went to Rancho, and I wrote it on our t-shirts, and it had a big B in the front, like a Superman. And belief is our superpower. If we believe in the magic of resurrection, if we believe in the magic of love and God and Jesus, if we believe it, we can create it. But the first thing that has to happen is we have to believe it. if we don't believe it in ourselves, then we're not going to manifest it. So when we're manifesting within our own lives, we are also manifesting with the lives of others. This is a co-creative process. We're doing this together. We're not by ourselves here. Okay? And that's the beauty of it. It's through this community that we create, where we establish ourselves as the elements of love that are going to be transferred. And we can do this together. So I can't believe these little yellow birds, man. They're just sitting there looking at me. So today's message for you is to ask yourself, how can I do this? And what are the ways in which I can provide a selfless service to others? This is what I ask of all of you today. This is the message that came through, that we are ready in our growth, in our awakening, in our expansion. We are ready, all of us, to be in selfless service. I come to you today very humbly and very grateful to have been given this opportunity to do this, to teach. And thank you for joining me today, because I know that today could be a day where we could all just, take the day off, and we will. But we're never taking the day off, guys, in love. We never are. We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to raise consciousness. And I want to share a prayer that I wrote a while ago. And I want you to help me today to say this prayer with your hearts full of love, full of hope, and full of this resurrection that I know is a symbol of today's Easter festivities. So take a deep breath with me. Turn on the light in your hearts. And say this in your minds as I say it. I now call upon my team of angels, ascended masters, and the highest Christ light to help use this day, this Easter day, this energetic gateway to tune into all that is available to me, to help me progress on my individual path of mastery in becoming the embodiment of the I Am. Support me, guide me, assist me, and make your presence clearly known to me through signs, through symbols, and direct experience of your love and guidance. Step forward to support and assist me in my life according to divine will, for the highest and greatest good. And so it is. Amen. Thank you all, ladies and men, in supporting me in my act of service. In expanding my heart every day, in allowing all of this wisdom and light and teaching to come through me in service of all of you. And I wish you all the most beautiful resurrection day, in the hope that you will see that every day as a happening in our reality. I love you all. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed what we talked about today. And if you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. We love to hear what you have to say.